Good evening. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Wyoming, I welcome you to this evening's candidate forums for the United States Senate race. I'm Michelle Escudero, a League board member and a volunteer. The League of Women Voters is pleased to host this forum and 5 additional forums with our partners, Wyoming Public Media and WyoFile. Additionally, we thank our local partners, the Casper League of Women Voters and Natrona County Library, for their tremendous support of this and 2 additional forums. The League of Women Voters of Wyoming is a nonpartisan grassroots organization that is part of the National League of Women Voters, founded in 1920. The League believes citizens play a crucial role in our democracy through informed, active participation in our government. The League is dedicated to voter education, promoting voter rights, and providing information that helps voters make informed decisions at the polls. The League does not support or endorse any candidate running for office. The League distributes unbiased voter information through the online voter guide, vote411.org, and creates opportunities like tonight's forum for voters to hear directly from the candidates and make their own informed decisions. Tonight's forum is being live streamed by Wyoming Public Media and recorded by the Casper College audio and visual team, and will be available online after the forum at the Wyoming League, Wyoming Public Media, and WyoFile's website, and of course, vote411.org. Thank you to our moderator, Ann McKinnon, and our panelists, Joshua Wolfson of WyoFile and Jordan Uplinger of Wyoming Public Media. We thank the candidates for running for elected office. It is a commitment of time, energy, and emotional and mental strength, and we thank you. With that, please welcome our moderator for tonight's forum, Ann McKinnon, who will introduce the guidelines and begin tonight's event.
Hello, I'm glad a few of you were able to find this building. I'm Ann McKinnon. I'm a former editor-in-chief of the Star Tribune and a former board chair of WyoFile. So the purpose of tonight's forum is to introduce you as the voters to the candidates who hope to serve the public as one of our 2 United States senators. The League of Women Voters believes these forums are a way for voting citizens to learn more about the candidates. First up will be our 2 Democratic candidates, and following we will ask the same questions of the Republican candidates. During the questioning of the Democrats, the Republicans have been asked to step outside, turn off their phones, and not listen to the questions so that everyone hears the questions fresh. We haven't shared the questions with the candidates in advance. We've allowed them, of course, to do their own research and bring whatever notes they'd like to have. So, as audience members, please silence your cell phones. Tonight's Democratic primary election forum will feature these 2 candidates for the office of U.S. Senator, Billy Benavides and James Byrd. Only one candidate from each party, the one with the most votes in the primary in August, will move on to the general election in November. Tonight's forum is on a restricted time schedule. The candidates will each receive up to 1 minute to make an introductory statement, and then a stated set time to answer each question, and finally up to 1 minute for their closing statement, or to address any areas they didn't get a chance to cover during the questions. So for the rules for tonight, this is a forum and not a debate. You'll be asked a question and you'll have either a minute or 90 seconds to answer the question. We will note the time limit when we ask the question. We will alternate which of you answers the question first. We ask that everyone be respectful and courteous. We'd like you to answer the question for yourself, avoiding all personal attacks on other candidates. Candidates, you should address your answers to the audience and not to other candidates, and please don't engage with the other candidate. You'll be advised, I think we have, yes, the person with the paddle there will let you know when there's 15 seconds left to go and when time is up. If you go over time, I'll just stop you. So candidates, please turn off your phones. The candidates aren't allowed to wear earbuds, and private recording of the forums isn't allowed. If you want a question repeated, please don't hesitate to ask. So audience, in addition to silencing your cell phones, we ask that you not clap or vocalize, make noise in any way, showing either your support or your disapproval of what the candidates say. So first we'd like to start with an introductory statement. You each have 1 minute, and Mr. Benavides, you're up first.
Thank you very much. How's it going, everyone? Lights are a little bit bright, so I gotta bring some coolness to this forum. You don't see this too often. My name is Billy Benavides. Some people call me Billy the Baptist. I am running just for 1 term only. Everything I've researched, I am the first one and the only one in history in the United States that has ever ran for 1 term only. Also, what we want and can have is pillars of strength, columns of strength, to win, to dominate with class and respect. And as a United States Senator, I would do that in every facet, in every way that can be fathomable. And it can be possible if you vote for me. I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Byrd, you're up.
Thank you. My name is James Byrd. My family came to Wyoming when it was a territory homesteaded north of Laramie. And so when I talk about being from Wyoming, I'm a 5th generation Wyoming. So I know a lot about the way that this state works. And part of my culture, part of my background, and part of my upbringing is that Wyoming culture. I literally do try to ride for the brand. Myself, I graduated from Cheyenne Central High School, went to the University of Wyoming, got a job working in the oil and gas business as a geophysicist till that didn't pan out anymore. And then I went into computer networking and security, and then found my way coming back to Wyoming. So that in a nutshell is what I have, 10 years of experience in the legislature. And I would like for you to vote for me because I believe that we don't get represented well in Wyoming, in Washington. Thank you.
Thank you. So now for the first question, you'll each have up to 1 minute to answer it. And Mr. Byrd, you'll go first. Josh.
Candidates, what are the 3 biggest challenges facing Wyoming that you hope to address from the U.S. Senate?
Well, thank you for the question. The 3 biggest challenges would be that our current delegation in Wyoming does not represent the people in Wyoming. They represent the Beltway interests, the corporate boardrooms, and the Silicon Bros. What I plan to do on day 1 is represent the people of Wyoming in Washington, D.C., rather than the D.C. interests in Wyoming. And to do that, I plan to go and introduce things like term limits on day 1 and tackle affordability on day 1. I mean, there is no party to what a gallon of gas or a gallon of diesel will cost you. So it doesn't matter what party you're in, where you're from, the cost of food and all of that is very high, and that should be addressed in the United States Senate.
Thank you, Mr. Benavides.
3 biggest challenges I think facing Wyoming. Number 1 is FISA, essentially privacy. We're not having it. We're essentially a surveillance state. No one wants to talk about it, but I'm making it abundantly known. If you've seen online, you've seen many, what you want to call towers being cut down, what have you, because people want their privacy back. Everyone wants their privacy, and it's being robbed from us blind. So we're fed up with that. Number 2, affordability, of course, throughout the state. And number 3 is housing. We need more supply to be built quickly, but within reason, using common sense, not just throwing up things that can be taken down within 5 or 10 years, something that can last for a good long time. And I believe I can do that talking with the people in the Senate and in the Capitol to make it happen for Wyoming. Thank you.
Thank you. So now the next question, Mr. Benavides, you're first. And this one you have 90 seconds to answer.
About 48% of Wyoming is public lands managed by the federal government. Do you support the transfer of these resources to the state of Wyoming or any other entities? What do you believe is the appropriate balance between often competing uses?
In regard to the public lands, usually when you let the government do things that Wyoming does not want them to do, bad things happen. I've seen it too many times, not only in Wyoming, but across the United States. And it does not usually end up with a great result. So we need to listen to the people of Wyoming, not all the time the people in government. Can government do good things, great things? Absolutely, at certain times, but it varies. And in this case, it looks like they are more than likely wrong. In regard to how far, how deep they want to go, it just varies on, I mean, maybe there's a remote area that there's one person in a square yardage of 100,000 miles out of the middle of nowhere that maybe that they can do something with, but I'm not sure about that. I think there's some proud landowners and people who really care for the land, every square inch of Wyoming, and want to protect that land. So,
Thank you. Mr. Byrd?
Thank you for the question. Public lands is one of the things that I stand on, and I stand on very firmly. A survey was done that showed that 98.9% of the people surveyed did not want public lands to change hands. In the state of Wyoming, that number is roughly 40% of our state, and that is co-managed by the federal government and state government. Here's the problems that we face if we do that. We have farmers and ranchers who actually lease public land, and they use that to complete the financial stability of their operation. We're looking at legacy ranches that could not survive if we got rid of their public land, if we sold that off or gave it away or traded it in some fashion. We're looking at the tourism industry, which is our second largest industry in the state of Wyoming, $5.2 billion, being directly affected by that, because those people who do backcountry guiding, fishing, and all those related things, the hospitality industry that provides the hotels that some of you stay in when you travel around the state, will all be directly impacted by this. It is a bad idea.
Thank you. The next question, Mr. Byrd, you'll be first this time, and you have 1 minute to answer it. Josh.
What criteria will you use when evaluating presidential appointees? How will you weigh competence and qualifications against the president's prerogative to build the team of his or her choice?
Well, thank you for the question. And to use what you just said in your question, competence, experience, and depth of subject matter. Right now we have amateur hour in Washington, D.C., and the results that you're seeing across the country and in our economy and around the world are because these people have no clue as to what they're doing, other than trying to serve their own interests and make as much money on the backside as they can off of their position in the government. This is totally against the moral and ethics of our country that we live in. On day one, this would be one of the things that I stop. The evaluations of those people coming into those offices would have to meet that strict criteria.
Mr. Benavides, you have your mic on while Mr. Byrd was speaking, and you could hear the scratching pen. Thank you. Now, Mr. Benavides, your answer.
My apologies. In regard to presidential employees, they should be people of integrity, honesty, common sense, and they should have a decent amount of experience. But also, one thing that I think is missing sometimes in society is you got to have trust. Trust is missing People are not, to a certain extent, trusting people anymore for the basic things. Hi, how you doing? Shaking your hand and having integrity and honesty. There is nothing wrong with having integrity and honesty. And then also, you have to, there's a reason why God put President Trump, it could go back to President Carter, President Roosevelt, President Lincoln. You got to trust the president because God put him there, in my opinion. And I would trust the president to have the best appointees as possible.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Benavides, you have 1 minute for the answer to the next question. Jordan?
In recent years, the center of federal power has shifted from the legislative branch to the executive branch. What do you think is the appropriate balance between the legislative branch to the executive branch, and what change do you believe would be necessary to achieve that?
I feel that going back essentially to the old school days, whether it be going back to the 80s, going back to the 50s, or even going back to the 1900s, looking at the old record books and seeing how rules and regulations were made, most likely meticulously, not just thrown out at the whim, but looked at logically with common sense and being deliberate. Going back to basics, I think that's being forgotten, unfortunately. People just want to jump the gun instead of doing their research. So that's one thing I would do if I was elected, that's for sure, is bringing back some old school integrity and honesty, that's for sure.
Thank you. Mr. Byrd?
Could I have you repeat that question, please?
Sure. In recent years, the center of federal power has shifted from the legislative branch to the executive branch. What do you think is the appropriate balance between the legislative branch to the executive branch, and what changes do you believe would be necessary to achieve that?
Thank you for the question. That's a fairly simple question. Our government and our country is outlined and ruled by the Constitution. The Constitution explicitly decides 3 co-equal branches of government, with each one of them playing a role in the operation of the government. Right now we have a Supreme Court that has totally abdicated its responsibility in judicial process. We have a legislative branch who does nothing but sit on its thumbs and acquiesces to the executive. That is not what our founding fathers wanted. What I will do is go back there and put that constitutional rules back into place. Follow what our founders said. Because it worked for 250 years, it will work for another 250 years if we allow it to continue.
Thank you. Now, you'll be first on this next question, Mr. Byrd, and you have 90 seconds to answer. Josh.
Members of Congress have information about business interests that most members of the public don't have. Lawmakers also write laws that could impact the companies they are invested in. Many Americans see that arrangement as a conflict of interest. Would you support legislation to ban lawmakers, their spouses, and their dependent children from trading individual stocks? Why or why not?
Thank you for the question. Absolutely. There's information that goes through the government. We have this for private industry. It's called insider trading. And we had an agency that was fully manned and to go out and patrol this and make sure that those rules were being followed. But the current administration has decided to cut that agency using oversight to shreds. So there is no basic sheriff in town, which makes it very easy for these politicians to do these backroom deals. They know beforehand. It's been a topic that's in the news, and I don't know why it's not gaining more momentum. But there are trades. There are people making millions of dollars off of stock tips just 15 minutes before the news breaks that this is what the government's doing. That is absolutely insider trading. It's absolutely unethical. It's immoral and it's illegal. And when I get there, that will stop.
Thank you. Mr. Benavides.
In regard to doing trading of individual stocks, me personally, I only invest in mutual funds. That's one of the perks of Congress, I guess you can say, is slimeball, sleazebag, individual stock trading. Of course, I would be against that, but unfortunately, it has not been outlawed. The other perks is nasty, filthy, good-for-nothing Epstein evil as well, using the cover-up corruption pig, oinking its way all over the place. So yeah, I can sit there and do, individual trading. I'm against that, but will it pass? I'm not sure. I should. What in the world are they doing? They're getting away with corruption, and it's a perk of Congress. Epstein, stocks, what other nasty perks are they getting away with? So yes, I would do away with it, but there's a lot more that's getting swept underneath the rug, that's for sure.
Thank you. And Mr. Benavides, this is another 90-second question, and you start with it. Jordan.
Healthcare is top of mind for voters. Do you see the Rural Healthcare Transformation Program funds as the solution to bringing down the cost of insurance and care and increasing the availability of services in our state? Why or why not?
Unfortunately, healthcare is a thorn, essentially, for what I'm noticing in everyone's side. In regard to affordability, we have Obamacare, and whatever method we had before, both didn't work. Everyone knows it. It rots. So if anything, you just throw your hands in the air and say, you know what, we need to start over. Come up with something new, vibrant, let the market dictate what needs to happen using capitalism, the old school word of capitalism, in healthcare. And let's see what happens. Because the other two options we've done has not worked. It's failed, and failed miserably. When you go to the doctor and they go, you need a test of, let's just say, an MRI, and it costs $10,000. With insurance, it's 10 grand. How much does it you pay in cash? Oh, it's only $250. What? So you're telling me with insurance it costs me 10 grand, but with paying cash it's 250, maybe 500? Yes, sir, ma'am. We got a problem going on. So we just need to start over. And that's, unfortunately, is common sense, in my opinion. And everyone, I believe, is feeling the same way. It's that bad.
Thank you. Mr. Byrd.
Can I get a clarification? Was that a question on rural health care?
Yes, the main part of the question is, do you see the Rural Healthcare Transformation Program funds as the solution to bringing down the cost of insurance and care and increasing the availability of services in the state?
Thank you for that clarification. In the legislature, we struggled with this problem the whole time I was there. What the problem is big pharma, big insurance really are trying to take advantage of every loophole and every dime that they can squeeze out of people. So us as a rural state with a small population, we're really not an interest to them because they can't make any money off of us. So they bypass us, so we have to come up with innovative solutions. Funding our rural hospitals is absolutely necessary because not only does that rural hospital provide that health care for what could turn into a life-threatening situation over something just as simple as a cut or something, it also provides a cornerstone for the financial stability of those communities that they're in. Because if that rural hospital were to close or that rural clinic were to close, the first thing that closes right after that is the diner, and then the store down the street, and then the other store, because those people aren't there spending any money, there's no cash flow in that. So that's a multifaceted question, but the healthcare is essential to keep the people of the state of Wyoming healthy. We have to take on big pharma because what they do is they set prices that are for their profit margins and not actually with the people in the state of Wyoming concerned. You can see that because you can get pharmaceutical products across the border in Canada that are the same price as Mexico, but not the United States.
Thank you. Mr. Byrd, next is another 90-second question for you to begin.
The Social Security Retirement Trust Fund is projected to be depleted in late 2032 if Congress does not intervene. That would be only 6 years from now. Should this program be salvaged, replaced, or allowed to sunset? And how?
Thank you for the question. I am fully in support of Social Security. It is a trust system. Every one of you inside this room that has a job has paid into that trust, and you are owed by the government that money back. The problem is the Congress has found a way to backdoor into that trust fund and leave worthless IOUs, depleting the cash amount of that corpus in there. That's why it doesn't have any money. That's why it's in financial problems. The first thing on day one is to plug that door. It's like in Wyoming, we have the Permanent Mineral Trust Fund. Those guys who created that made that sacrosanct. There is almost no way that I've ever seen that you can get at that corpus. And we need to do that with Social Security, and we need to turn around and put active funds in it from the government. I think if we took the $1.5 billion a day that we're over there in Iran and diverted part of that into Social Security, we'd be solvent in no time at all. So keeping in mind that you have paid into Social Security, it is not an entitlement. The government owes you that money, and it is their responsibility to take care of it, not just go willy-nilly spend it on whatever little project they can think out of the back door and create the financial problems it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Benavides.
Every time I think of Social Security, it actually makes me sad. For all those many years, Congress was taking money away, the people's money. If they would have just left it into the Social Security account or what have you, and not take it through NGOs or other filth, rot, and decay, wherever they wanted to, people could have retired most likely at 55, going back from Roosevelt's days. So all I see, unfortunately, is lost opportunity for so many Americans that they could have retired even earlier instead of it being later. And even going back to success with Social Security, I believe Colonel Sanders from KFC uses Social Security check to have a successful business that still stands today. So all I see is lost opportunity in regard to Social Security. It's going to be there. Just the funds just should not be robbed, and people, it should be a supplement besides your regular 401k or IRA Roth or what have you, to build up a great nest egg, a great retirement. I want everyone to have success in excess and have a successful retirement for years to come. Don't rely on Social Security. You can do it on your own. You can be successful and win. And it's a great message to have, to be motivated and inspired.
Thank you. And this is our final question. Mr. Benavides, you have 1 minute to answer.
Carbon-based energy industries have supported Wyoming for generations. What are your views about the balance between supporting those essential energies and making room for diversification in other energy sectors like wind, solar, and nuclear?
The energy industry, in regard to renewable energy, what have you, if you're talking about windmills, what have you, I worship the Creator, God. Unfortunately, some people worship the creation, not the creator. In regard to renewable energy, there is plenty of opportunity in Wyoming, but it needs to be very strategic and specific, as in not where essentially people on the roadway can see a windmill or what have you. It can be put 20, 30, 40 miles out where people can't see it and still provide enough energy, what have you, and have the opportunity to, for the years, decades to come, to have great success with renewable energy. Do I see a future with that? Yes, along with oil and gas. It can be a great opportunity not only for the youngest generation, but for all generations to be successful with having numerous different types of energies and jobs that comes with it.
Thank you. Mr. Byrd.
Thank you for the question. Just one thing, coal, gas, and those things built this building and this campus that we're sitting on. That's what happens when we do things right. At one particular time, Wyoming was providing 35% of the nation's energy needs. That's 35%. Yes, we were the #1 exporter of energy in this country. We have since lost our way. We've decided that we're going to double down on coal, which was a good idea at the time, but there are new technologies. The power companies are shifting away from coal, not because there's a war on coal and it's politically correct, it's because their shareholders are demanding a cleaner environment for their electrons. So I support our coal. What we need to do is reinvest that money in the University of Wyoming and get our research going so we can lead the way in the nuclear and the next generations of power generations in this state of Wyoming and the country.
Thank you. Thank you both. You now each have up to a minute for closing remarks, and we'll start with you, Mr. Byrd.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for putting this on. I would have liked to seen more people in the audience, but as long as there's warm bodies in there and I have somebody to talk to, I appreciate it. So my name is James Byrd. My website is birdforsenate.com. I am a lifelong Wyoming resident. I carry that on my shoulder with everything I do, and I support what the people of Wyoming should be seeing out of their Washington delegation, not the Washington delegation dictating or being dictated to by the executive in the White House as to what's going on in Wyoming. I will represent your interests in Washington, not Washington's interests in Wyoming. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Benavides.
Thank you, ladies, for having me here. Ladies, be motivated, be strong, be vibrant. Me personally, I appreciate you ladies in every facet. If you'd like to research me, just type my name on Google. I'm there, billyforwyoming.com as well. You can still be a Republican if this is online, and you can still vote for me in the primary. You just have to type my name, I believe. But we need trust, integrity. There's nothing wrong with having trust and integrity in Washington, in America, back in the Senate, back in our country. And I feel I can do that for everyone, not just for some people, just not for a few, but for everyone. And that's what everyone is looking for, integrity and honesty back in America.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here and participating. We now will welcome the Republican candidates onto the stage, and you all can stay and watch or whatever you like. Thank you, candidates, for being here. As you can see, the audience had as much trouble getting to this building through the construction as the rest of us. I'm going to read for the candidates some of the ground rules that I read before. And the rules for tonight, we're going to have it's a restricted time schedule. You'll each receive a minute to make an introductory statement and then a stated set time to answer each question. And finally, up to 1 minute for a closing statement or to address areas you didn't get to cover during the questions. But this is a forum and not a debate. You'll be asked a question, you'll either have a minute or 90 seconds to answer it, and we will note the time limit when we ask the question. We'll alternate which of you answers the question first. We ask that everyone be respectful and courteous. We would like you to answer the question for yourself, avoiding all personal attacks on other candidates. Address your answers to the audience and not to the other candidates. Please don't engage with the other candidates. You'll be advised by the person holding up our paddle is here when there are 15 seconds left, and when time is up. If you go over the time, I'll just stop you. So I assume you all have turned off your phones. The audience has already done so. You're not allowed to wear earbuds, which I'm sure you know, and private recording of the forums is not allowed. Be sure, if you want the question repeated, be sure to ask for that. So now, let me make sure you all know, audience, who you're looking at. On the far left, Representative Harriet Hageman. Next to her, John Allen Holtz. Next, Sam Mead. And on this end, Jimmy Skovgaard. So we'll start with an introductory statement from each candidate. You each have up to a minute. And we'll start with you, Representative Hageman.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. It's wonderful to be back at Casper College, my alma mater. I was here in the early 1980s. And I want to thank the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this event. I also want to tell the family of Linda Barton that I am thinking about them for that recent loss. It has been the honor of a lifetime to represent the folks of Wyoming in Congress. My team and I have worked tirelessly to make sure that we are addressing the issues that are important to you. I've been working to support small businesses, the ag industry, the energy industry, local government, the communities, et cetera. And because it is so important that if you are going to represent Wyoming, you focus on Wyoming issues. Transparency and accountability have been the hallmarks of my 2 terms in Congress, and I will continue to work on your behalf if I am fortunate enough to earn your vote for the United States Senate. If I can say one thing, I can't read it. Is there something?
Well, so that's the 15-second sign, excuse me, and the flip side is the stop sign.
To stop. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Holtz.
Hello, I'm John Holtz. It's a pleasure to be back in Casper. Used to live in Douglas for many years and was a judge in both Douglas and Glen Rock. Back when we had a lot of stuff going on. I was recruited when I worked for Hughes Aircraft, and Converse County had more murders than the rest of the state combined. So I worked on murder cases, and then 21 months later became a judge there, setting up courts all over Wyoming that are now today the circuit courts. At Hughes Aircraft was an interesting place to work, where I did something or some things that no one else had ever been able to do. Obtained the first double-digit firm fixed price, and Hughes Aircraft was ahead of the team to redesign the Army's main battle tank, the fire control system, and a lot of experience in international things, living all over the world. And I'm down to, I think, looking at the 15 seconds, so I've still got a few more seconds, so wish everybody a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Mr. Mead.
Well, thanks, Ann, and the League of Women Voters for putting this together tonight, and thank you guys for coming out and being engaged in our politics. My name is Sam Mead. I'm a problem solver. I'm a 5th-generation rancher. I'm a distiller, a software engineer, and I want Wyoming to be a place where our kids are proud to raise their kids. I want Wyoming to be the Wyoming that I grew up in. And that means protecting our public lands and making sure that those are accessible to all the people of this state. That means building a healthcare system that's going to work for people in the state. Rural healthcare is not going very well for us, I think, as many of you know. And there's a lot of ground to make up there. We need to build a diverse economy where our kids can stay here and work here. I look forward to answering the questions tonight, and I'm excited to talk about them.
Thank you. So we have 3. Oh, right. Excuse me. I'm too eager to move on. I apologize. I should mention, Mr. Holtz, when you finish speaking, just hit the button again so your mic is off. Yes. Yes, Mr. Skovgaard.
Thank you, Ann, and thanks everybody for coming out tonight. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters. You guys are a power right here in Wyoming. And for those that don't reach out to you guys for help, shame on you. My name is Jimmy Skogard. I grew up in the Bighorn Basin, Grable Basin, went to the University of Wyoming, received a commission in the Wyoming Army National Guard, got a degree in history, didn't really know what to do with that after I got done. Then I said, oh, well, I'll get a job as an environmental scientist and data analyst for Tri-Hydro Corporation. So I said, okay, so now I got history and data. And then I said, well, this isn't working out, so I want to start my own business. So I did an oil field business right here in Casper, salesman mostly, doing my own sales. And so I'm putting it all together, and I'm like, history, data analysis, and sales. Well, I guess that's politicians next. So, like everybody, again, thanks for coming out tonight, and thank you for being a part of our system of government. This is the most important part that we can do.
Thank you. So now we'll move on to the first question. And it's a 1-minute question, and we'll start with you, Mr. Holtz.
What are the 3 biggest challenges facing Wyoming that you hope to address from the U.S. Senate?
I think one of the 3 that I can think of at the moment, that wasn't one of them. Agriculture with this drought, our mineral extractions, living in Converse County, where I visited with that and experienced that firsthand. And tourism, but I think we have some real problems like with our public lands and the access and what we're going to do. We do not want to turn Wyoming into Disneyland. I remember my grandmother telling me stories. She had to worry in 1919 in Gillette about her horse stepping in prairie dog holes. But we do have unique problems here, and we require someone who's not shy and will speak up and keep Wyoming first. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mead.
Yeah, our 3 biggest challenges to me, are that we have representatives that support federal mandates disposing of our federal lands. That's not the Wyoming way, and I want to continue to be able to see our young people enjoy our public lands. The other one, which I touched on, is healthcare. Our premiums are some of the highest in the country. We have an uncompetitive market, and insurers don't want to operate here. We need to fix that. I have a plan to fix that, and I think it'll go a long ways to fixing some of the issues we have. The last one is we do a great job with public education, and we invest in our children. The problem is that we also export most of our children. We need to build an economy that supports, I'm fine if they leave, but it'd be great if they would like to come back. And so that means diversifying our economy and building something that's going to work for our young people.
Thank you. Mr. Skovgaard.
Thank you, Ann. Inflation and the Constitution and the rule of law. We've got to have a government that operates within the boundaries of the Constitution and the rule of law. This is primary. Without that, we have chaos. And when I mention inflation, this is something that we just totally want to avoid is the national debt. It's the underlying cause of every price increase that we're seeing in our lives today. And we don't even hear it being discussed in the halls of Congress. Why? The Senate's not talking about it. The House is not talking about it. And finally, I wanted to talk about a little bit more about accountability. We have to hold our representatives accountable. They have to be accountable to us and not just before elections. We have the technology now to hold our representatives accountable to the decisions that they're making and not making. And we need to be reaching out to them and showing them what we want as constituents right here in Wyoming. We have that technology. Why it's not being used is simply because we don't have the will to use it.
Thank you. Ms. Hageman.
Well, broadly, one of the biggest issues that we deal with in Washington, D.C. is overregulation. And in Wyoming, that has a huge impact because of the nature of the industries that we have. So I would say one of the primary issues that we have to address is protecting our legacy industries, our energy industry, our ag industry, and our tourism industry. And what we need to do is we need to modernize the statutes and the laws that have been in place for well over 50 years to make sure that they are working for our modern society. Also, addressing rural health care. I agree with that. I think that that's a very significant issue for the state of Wyoming. That's why I was instrumental working with our delegation in making sure that we were able to pass the Rural Health Care Transformation Act, where just this year alone we were able to bring $205 million to the state of Wyoming so that we can start really modernizing that entire system as well and making sure that we're able to provide health care in one of the most rural settings that we have in the United States. So I've been working tirelessly on making sure that we can provide adequate, not only adequate, but excellent health care here in the state of Wyoming.
Thank you. Now, for the next question, Mr. Hi, am I doing this again? Oh, okay. I did ask you all. Yes, okay. So, for the next question, Mr. Mead, you're first, and you'll each have 90 seconds to answer this question. Josh.
Good evening. About 40% of Wyoming is public land managed by the federal government. Do you support the transfer of these resources to the state of Wyoming or any other entities? And what do you believe is the appropriate balance between often competing uses of these lands?
Thank you, Joshua. I don't support any top-down disposal of federal lands. It's just not the Wyoming way. And where I do see, areas where we can transfer land is where local communities have need to expand, or if there's state in holdings that don't make sense. If those are locally driven discussions, those are things I'm fine with. And I think we can streamline that and make sure the process to do that is going to serve communities in a way that's not really lengthy and onerous. I think our state has, not to paint with too broad a brush, and there's been bumps along the way, but I think our state has done a pretty good job of balancing multiple use of federal and state lands. From protecting wildlife migration areas, sage grouse, and then balancing our mineral and oil and gas industry. I think by and large, the state has done a better job than the federal government, and I think the federal government could learn a lot of lessons from the state. I think that's one of the things I'd like to work on is making sure that the lessons we learn in the state, we can apply at a federal level and really streamline that process, make it efficient, and cater to all the stakeholders.
Thank you. Mr. Skovgaard.
Yep, thank you for the question. Federal transfer to state control, probably not so much, not until the state is way plussed up. There's so much federal land that the resources that we have at the state right now don't exist to control that much federal land properly. Now, I would support seeing a state-federal partnership, a very close partnership, and I would even support allowing the state primacy in that relationship. But we need to keep the federal folks involved. These lands are our posterity. We hold them in trust for our children and our children's children. So to talk about randomly selling off 0.5 to 0.75% is ridiculous. We should have never seen that appear in our budget bill this past cycle, and yet there it was. And we raised hue and cry, and rightly so, but we should also be able to have representation that puts those items in front of us as a constituency. We should know about that. It should be coming from Washington. Your representative should be telling you what is in this legislation before this legislation hits the ground. And I think we let the ball fall right there, folks. We need to hold our representatives accountable to us, and they need to tell us what's going on before they vote on it, before the vote even comes to the floor. We need to know what's there if we're interested, and we should be interested in things like public land sales.
Thank you. Ms. Hageman.
Yes, I have been traveling the state, obviously, extensively since I have been in Congress. And I can tell you what I hear from the people in Wyoming are several things. They want better accessibility. They want better management of our federal lands, both of the Forest Service as well as the BLM lands. I think that our national parks, they do a great job there, but that's obviously something very different. And then they also want local involvement and input when there are decisions being made related to resource management plans, for example. The Rock Springs Resource Management Plan is an example of that, where for 10 years there had been extensive local input, and then with the Biden administration, they came in and based upon a 2-week analysis completely upended the entire Rock Springs RMP, ignoring the local input that had been where they had engaged for the previous 10 years. The work that I've been doing in Congress in that regard is the Fix Our Forest Act. That is a bipartisan piece of legislation that is sitting in the Senate right now that will go to great lengths to actually improve the condition of our national forests. Another one that I'm a co-sponsor of is the Great American Outdoor Act, which is appropriating an additional $2 billion for infrastructure in our national parks, Forest Service, BLM lands, and with our Indian schools. I'm a strong supporter of those. I have also voted to fully fund our federal land agencies. And so I'm someone who comes from a federal land state, and I have worked diligently and very hard in Congress to make sure that we are protecting those resources, not only for the current generation, but future generations as well, despite the accusations that might be made at different times.
Thank you. And Mr. Holtz.
I favor keeping things pretty much the way they are. We are in an extended drought. We are in something we haven't seen in a long time. And you look at the fires that are popping up all over Wyoming as recently as today. The one that was looking at yesterday was on the Converse County, Natrona County line, went from 3 acres to 6 acres, then to 85 acres. And then, fortunately, I believe, someone told me it was out. I looked as I came today from Douglas if I could see smoke. But we're in a different set of a situation that we haven't been in. We look at the shortage of water that we send downstream, the problems that we have in other states. Look at the fires in Colorado right now that we have, that the smoke is coming into Wyoming. I had lunch with some people. The lady, the wife of a friend of mine, her eyes were basically tearing from the smoke that we believe was out of the Colorado. And opening these lands to tourists and this kind of thing is not a good idea. I have watched, like, the state of California deteriorate over the years. We want to keep Wyoming rugged and beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you all. And Mr. Holtz, if you could turn off your mic. Now, Mr. Scovard, you're the first this time, and you will each have 1 minute to answer this question.
What criteria will you use when evaluating presidential appointees? How will you weigh competence and qualifications against the president's prerogative to build the team of their choice?
As a senator, you have an allegiance to the administration that you're working for. So you need to carefully consider the president's choices that are handed to you. But at the same time, if they hand you a choice that is totally unfit for the office, then as an oath the oath that you take to the Constitution supersedes the allegiance that you have to the President of the United States. And we need to take a closer look at that, folks. We're nominating people that are not fit for the offices that we're asking them to serve in, and we're seeing the results of that today. We're seeing the results of that unfold right before our eyes. And to sit back and say, oh, this is all part of some plan, I just can't accept that. This is part of the reason why I got off the couch and ran for this office, is because we're seeing a serious case of the nonsense invading our political system.
Thank you. Ms. Hageman.
I think this is one of the most important jobs that a senator has, is vetting people who are going in to the administration. Prior to going into Congress, I was a water, natural resource, and constitutional attorney for 34 years, and I dealt with many federal agencies, represented lots of clients here in the state of Wyoming that were being prosecuted by federal agencies or who were suing federal agencies for a variety of reasons. And what I've learned is that the head of those agencies are the ones that really do define what their culture is going to be. And what this does, being a U.S. Senator, this is one of the reasons that I've made the decision to run for Senate rather than running again for the U.S. House, is it gives you the opportunity to actually work with the nominees, to talk to them about what the issues are that are important to them and how they plan to govern. So for example, we've already talked about it. We're one of the richest energy states in the nation. We've got the federal lands, we have the water issues, we have our ag, we have our legacy industries. One of the things that I intend to do is make sure that I work closely with any nominee, whether they're a Democrat or a Republican nominee, and make sure that they are going to protect, or that they are going to focus on and address Wyoming issues.
Thank you. Mr. Holtz.
I would ask the Lord for guidance. That's number one, and it's something I think all of you in the audience should do also when it comes to candidates. That's important, very important. We are in times that are unprecedented. We are in a time of war, and it's not getting better. And we're in a theological war with Iran, where they believe they have to start a war and be losing for their Mahdi or Savior to come and save them. And we look at the headlines, we look at things. In the Senate, you have good people that come as candidates, you have people in between, you have some that shouldn't be there. So never be afraid to ask the Lord for guidance. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mead.
I mean, so the United States is the most powerful nation in the world, and Senate appointments are some of the most important appointments that we make. Being the case, we need to make sure that, when we're appointing people, these are some of the best minds in the world, and these are some of the most competent people in the world. I worry, that that's not the case now, and that always has to come first before anything else. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Hagman, you're the first this time, and each of you will have 1 minute to answer this question. Josh.
Thank you. In recent years, the balance of federal power has tilted from the legislative branch to the executive. What do you think is the appropriate balance between the legislative branch to the executive branch? And what changes do you believe would be necessary to achieve that?
So this is such a critically important question. We have Article 1, 2, and 3 for a reason. And I believe Article 1, when you look at the framework of the Constitution, that is the legislative branch, and it was discussed first for a very important reason. We have the legislative branch has actually abdicated its responsibilities in many ways by allowing the executive agencies to take over their legislating and lawmaking authority. I am currently the chairman of the Article 1 Task Force for the Republican Study Committee in the House of Representatives, the very purpose of which is to try to find ways to pull that power back to the legislative branch. Because we are a republic, we are a representative form of government. I am answerable to you. I'm here today to answer questions and to present my view of things. I go out and do town halls and meet with people and hold hearings and things like that so that people know that I'm representing them. That's a republic. A nameless, faceless bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. may not have any idea of what your issues are, but I should as your representative. And that's why it's so important that the legislative branch reclaim its authority for legislating and taking that away from the executive branch.
Thanks. And Ms.
I agree that in some cases the executive branch has seized too much power, and we need to make sure that there is a separation of power, both horizontal and vertical. And that's the way things should work. And in my experience, I actually, in Wyoming, came up with a case, well, not came up with a case, I had to hear it, State XRL Motor Vehicle v. Holtz. That's the shortened version of it. The legislature in Wyoming passed a law saying judges have to pick up driver's licenses and issue new ones when someone pleads guilty or is found guilty to a DUI. And I said, wrong branch of government, that's the executive branch, not the judicial branch, to issue driver's license. the Supreme Court upheld me in Wyoming. So I had the courage to do something, actually. So I just thought I'd point that out. But the federal problem is severe, and it requires, I think, very quick and immediate action. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mead.
Public trust in Congress is at all-time lows, and it's because they can't get anything done. I was a software engineer for many years, and I've seen the power of making small changes quickly. What you see in Congress is not that. We have huge bills that very few people understand, and as a result, the amount of legislation passed by Congress is trending towards zero. In that situation, it's very easy for the executive to seize a lot of the power and the legislative branch to just abdicate power to the executive. We absolutely need to turn that around. The legislative branch is the most important branch of government, and we need to start making laws fewer and faster. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Skovgaard.
Thank you for the question. Article 1 was the first article drafted by our founding fathers, and it was drafted that way for a reason. Congress and the Senate are the closest to the people, and they need to be the most responsive branch to the people. The people speak through their senators and their congressmen. The idea that we have relinquished so much power to the executive so that we could wake up one day and find ourselves embroiled in a war, and Article 1 power, we find ourselves faced with the reality that we can wake up the next morning and be in a war when we had no say in that, none of us. And we should be reaching out to our constituencies when we see these types of grabs for power. The executive needs to be reined in. If we need to sit down and work with one another until we have 2/3 of the Senate and 2/3 of the House to do this, then we need to rein in those executive powers and put limits on them again. Otherwise, we are going to wake up one day and be embroiled in a war that we're not going to be able to just walk away from.
Thank you. So, Mr. Holtz, back to you. As the first one, this one, you and each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer. Jordan.
Members of Congress have information about business interests that most members of the public don't have. Lawmakers also write laws that could impact the companies they are invested in. Many Americans see that arrangement as a conflict of interest. Would you support legislation to ban lawmakers, their spouses, and their dependent children from trading individual stocks? Why or why not?
Yes, I would. I see Nancy Pelosi has done rather well. Her husband's not a great driver, though, but still, yeah, she's done great in the stock market. And had she had inside information, who knows? But it is a possibility, and yeah, people in Congress, you have people trying to lobby you, tell things, do things. So I would definitely support that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mead.
Yeah, of course I'd support that. There's no reason our politicians should be treated any differently than the rest of us. And to have that kind of leg up is immoral. Our young people have a distrust in our government, and failing to pass any sort of ban on congressional stock trading just feeds into that. And it really bothers me that that isn't something that's been passed yet, and I would absolutely support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Skovgaard.
Thank you for that question. I'm from the people. I'm for the people and of the people, and we, the people, don't trade stocks with insider information, and so neither should the folks that represent us. If we need to enact legislation to do that, I'm wondering why it's not already been done. A little miffed by the idea that we can send folks to Congress or the Senate and they walk away, walk in with a couple of 100,000 and walk out with 20 million plus. That's wrong. We shouldn't be using our position in government to enrich ourselves. We should be using our position in government to work for the people that put us there. And if we can't do that, then we don't belong there. Citizens, defend the Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hageman?
Yes, we need to hold lawmakers to the same standard as private industry when it comes to insider information and being able to use that to trade stocks. So yes, I agree with that.
Thank you. Now, for this question, Mr. Mead, you're first this time. This is a 90-second question for each of you to answer. Josh.
Thank you. Healthcare is top of mind for voters. In fact, when we polled them on issues they were most concerned about, the top answer was healthcare affordability and accessibility. Do you see the Rural Health Transformation Program funds as the solution to bringing down the cost of insurance and care and increasing the availability of services in our state? Why or why not?
It helps, and that's great. But I wonder if anyone in this room has seen their premiums go down or their service improve from that. I think the answer is no. And the reason that is because this is a bigger problem than just rural health. It's the fact that our entire health insurance industry is broken. And until we fix that, we are not going to make any improvements on the burden it places on people. I think the two issues are that we have a burdensome administrative system that adds a lot of unnecessary overhead and cost. And then the second issue is that we just don't have the insured pool. So I think to fix those two issues first, I'd like to see us implement a standardized system across the country for all our insurance providers to use the same thing. As a software engineer, I know the power of having standardized protocols. Doing that would enable us to build some portability into insurance and create a nationwide marketplace instead of a statewide one, which solves some of the amortization risks that insurance companies face with small insurance pools. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Skofgard.
Thank you. This is an important issue. Almost every community that I've visited this year and last year have brought in health insurance up. A gentleman here in Casper has a faith-based group that he pays $500 a month for him and his wife. They're 62 years old. I'm like, that's amazing. I visited with a family of 4 in Pine Bluffs, Wyoming. They pay over $32,000 a year. Why is there such a spread? My conclusion, healthcare is broken. Health insurance is broken in Wyoming. We can do better. How do we do better? I say we start looking for a statewide insurance pool. We in Wyoming lead. We bring the funds because money is power. Money is what's driving this issue. The deficit's driving up the cost of our insurance, and we need to take charge of that on a state level. Bring our health insurance funds to a state-run fund and have that fund either negotiate on our behalf for the entire state of Wyoming so that we can get decent health care and coverage across Wyoming, not just for you and me, but for every single Wyomingite. That's something that we're not denying to folks. You know, when we talk about, oh, what if we end up providing health care for an illegal immigrant? What if? We're going to do it anyway. If we do it through our emergency rooms or we do it through a state-run plan, that works better for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hageman.
Yes, thank you again for that question. The Rural Healthcare Transformation Fund, I think it's important that you understand how that was put together. First of all, much of the point of that was that it would be state and local driven because every state is different. Maine is different than Wyoming. We're different than New Mexico. We're different than Oregon. We're different than Montana. So the point was that this would be very state driven as to what each individual state's needs are. So it is the Wyoming legislature that was, it was their responsibility to come up with the plan that would be implemented in the state of Wyoming, and they just did this last legislative session. So there's a reason why you may not have seen the impact of it yet, and that is because it just went into effect over the last few days. So the Wyoming plan will be implemented by the state of Wyoming, which is how this was intended to operate. So do I think it's going to be transformative? I do. Ultimately, Wyoming will receive over $500 million over a 5-year period to implement implement this plan to address the specific needs of our communities, whether it's Rollins or it's Pinedale or it's Gillette, and every one of them are different. Some of the other things that we need to be looking at, though, is we need to be looking at PBM reform. What is happening with our pharmaceuticals? We also need to be looking at being able to buy and sell insurance across state lines. The reality is that Obamacare drove health insurance companies out of the state of Wyoming. If you understand that basic fact, then you can start working backwards to see how to fix it. And the Rural Health Care Transformation Fund is a wonderful step in the right direction.
Thank you. Mr. Holtz.
Years ago, I remember people coming to me when I was a judge in Douglas and said, "John, can you have dinner with us tonight? We've got a doctor who's thinking of moving here." Because I said, "Sure," trying to talk doctors into coming there because we were short. My judge's chambers, the courthouse, was across the street from the hospital. Now, we have more problems, and we have legislation, but think what happens if you make changes to Medicare where people lose, Medicaid as well as Medicare. They will eventually affect that. But if you lose Medicaid, what's a person going to do? They're going to go to the emergency room. And then what happens when they go to the emergency room and the cost? The cost is double or triple what it would be otherwise. So we have a real problem. I think it's going to affect Wyoming. I think Wyoming has a possibility of losing a number of rural hospitals if things aren't changed. So you have to really look at legislation. In law school, I took a specific course that wasn't offered in Wyoming in legislation, how to write it, how to do it, that kind of stuff. But we are in a real problem in Wyoming. We are a unique state, and we need to do the right thing at the right time. Thank you.
Thank you. So now, Mr. Skopgaard, you'd be the first up. This is another question that'll be 90 seconds for each of you to answer. Jordan.
The Social Security Retirement Trust Fund is projected to be depleted in late 2032 if Congress does not intervene. Should the program be salvaged, replaced, or allowed to sunset? How?
This is an interesting question because a conversation that I had with a younger voter in Wyoming centered around why should I pay into the Social Security Trust Fund? Why should I be taxed and pay those taxes now? And I'd never heard that question. It never even occurred to me. And then I started looking into the Social Security, and I noticed that we're slated to run out of money by 2032, and if we do nothing, we all take a hit of $500, or at least the folks receiving benefits take a hit of $542 or something like that. And I'm like, wow. And during a time of inflation, we're going to take a reduction in Social Security benefits if we do nothing. Now, there's some fixes. I mean, we could extend the tax, instead of capping it at 100 and whatever it is, 107,000 or whatever that is, we could extend that. But the real fix is that we need security in our Social Security system at the federal level. And Wyoming has the perfect system. Wyoming's Permanent Mineral Trust Fund could be a model for the government, for the federal government. We could start taking physical assets and put those into the trust fund, those assets that appreciate faster than, or at least at the same rate as inflation, instead of the assets that we're using to back our trust fund now. Those assets are just simply bonds, and sometimes those bonds can be pegged at less than the rate of inflation, which impacts the overall solvency of the fund. We need to do something about that, and we need to do something about it right now, or we are going to answer the question, why am I paying into this?
Thank you. Ms. Hageman.
Thank you. I think there's two things we have to look at. And one is the number of people paying into the system, and then also waste, fraud, and abuse. The fact is, the more people who are in the workforce, then the more people will be paying into the system and shoring up the entire program. In fact, with the One Big Beautiful Bill that we passed last July, one of the things that we did for Medicaid reform is that we are requiring that adults with no dependent children who are not disabled need to go into the workforce at a rate of 20 hours a week, that they need to at least be working part-time to be able to get Medicaid. Just as a result of that one reform, there are 4 million people who are now in the workforce that were not in the workforce a year ago that are no longer receiving welfare payments, that are no longer they're getting the Medicaid, but they are now in the workforce paying into the system. Also, what we've seen in Maine and Minnesota and Ohio and California and these other states and Illinois, the amount of fraud that has been going on in these federal programs for years is absolutely off the charts. And it is imperative. It's not $10 billion. It's not 20 or 30 or 40 billion dollars. It's potentially hundreds of billions of dollars or more of our hard-earned tax money that is going for fraudulent purposes. That is one of the issues we are going to have to address in any of these federal programs to make sure that they are available and viable into the long-distant future.
Thank you. Mr. Holtz.
Thank you. There are a number of problems. For example, the COLA, cost of living, has not kept up with inflation. Since 2000, it's lost approximately 1/3 of its value. So that doesn't match. And then we look at the thresholds that were passed around 83. Those are not adjusted for inflation. When they first were passed, virtually no one paid tax on their Social Security. Now, approximately half do, and pretty soon everyone at almost the rate of ordinary income. And you put that with the fact about this cut, there's still money to pay Social Security, but as we're looking at in approximately 6.5 years, 7 years, somewhere 76 months, around a 21, 22, 25% cut. Now, if we raise the cap, make it like Medicare, that will probably buy us 20 years. But the problem is, the longer you wait, the harder it is to fix. And someone says this is the answer or whatever, and then a year goes by, or 6 months, 18 months, and it no longer will work. So it requires a joint bipartisan effort of Congress and the President to fix this, and it should be a priority. Because otherwise, it's not going to be kids moving out. They'll be moving back in with their folks, and their folks will be moving back in with their kids, because neither one's, the folks won't have enough money to live on if Social Security is cut in half, basically in buying power. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mead.
I would salvage Social Security, because all of us have been paying into Social Security. It's not an entitlement. It's something we've earned through our work, our hard work. Social Security is the single most important and effective program we have to keep the recently young out of poverty. And a 25% cut after the trust fund runs out would devastate our elderly population. The first thing we do is cut the cap. That gives us a lot of breathing room to solve the more structural issues with Social Security. So much of our system is built on the predication that we're going to have population growth. And when that pyramid starts to invert, a lot of these assumptions start to fall apart, Social Security being one of them. But I do think it's a problem we can solve, but let's get some breathing room first with cutting the cap. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, this is our final question. Representative Hageman, you'll be first, and each of you will have 1 minute to answer the question. Josh.
Carbon-based energy industries have supported Wyoming for generations. What are your views about the balance between supporting these essential energies and making room for diversification from other energy sectors, such as wind, solar, and nuclear?
So one of the things that you have to look at is just basically the density of the energy that you're producing. Wyoming's the largest coal producer in the nation. We're now the largest uranium producer in the nation. We're also the 8th largest, or approximately 8th largest oil and gas. It has treated, these resources have treated Wyoming very, very well. And the fact is that we have so many resources available right here in the state of Wyoming to continue to produce those. Wind and solar, I think you're probably all aware, I'm not a huge fan of them. and there's many reasons why. They just simply do not produce the same level of energy as oil and gas and our traditional historical energy resources do. You have to consider the cost, you have to consider the opportunity cost, and we have enough coal and enough oil and gas to continue powering this country for hundreds of years. I think that it's important that we continue to find different markets outside of the United States. We're going to be doing that with a new port going out of Oakland. There's many opportunities to continue to use these produce and use these resources in Wyoming.
Thank you. Mr. Holtz.
Yes. Do you all know what happens when you take a piece of coal and it gets under enough pressure? It turns into a diamond. We need our resources, and we should use what we have. The coal, uranium, oil and gas, rare earths that we have. Wyoming is an energy treasure trove. And wind and solar work sometimes, but I am not in favor of them. And if Tinkerbell sprinkles fairy dust, I guess they'll work. But you have to depend on that. And we need stuff that's reliable. We need things that are reliable, our energy. And using what we have is very important, and using it wisely is even more important. And it takes, in troublesome times, you have to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mead.
Wyoming's kind of the crown jewel of energy production in the United States. And as demand increases over the next years, we're going to need to be producing a lot more power. And that means more of everything. I think, as long as these projects are paying their own way and returning value to the people of Wyoming, we should build them. If you look at coal, we all know what coal have just done to this state. As a mayor of a really small town, I saw every year how important it was and how much of our budget was paid for by things like coal. And we didn't build coal by saying no to things. We built it by visionary leaders who probably knew there was problems along the way, but people in Wyoming can solve problems. And I think we can bring that to any kind of energy production here in Wyoming. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Skofgard.
Thank you for that question. I actually studied physics for a while when I first got to the University of Wyoming, and I found that was a pretty intense field of study. But part of that study was studying the nuclear energy that was available to us, and I thought, why isn't Wyoming, producing more nuclear energy? And we just don't have the will to understand as a constituency, as you and I, we need to take the time to understand how that new energy source is not new. It's tested, it's proven. We need to start looking into it a little bit more closely and how we can integrate that in. Because at some point we are going to just start phasing out some of our legacy energy industries, and that's the one that will replace it, the clean one that will replace it. In the meanwhile, we're not going anywhere with coal. We're not going anywhere with oil and gas. I built an entire business in the oil and gas industry supporting that, a little small business, and it's treated me well. It's treated my family well. It continues to treat our communities well. And so we'll continue to support those as we think about transitioning to a new energy source.
Thank you. Thank you, candidates, for all of this. You now have each have up to 1 minute for your closing remarks. So we'll start with you, Mr. Holtz.
I didn't hear what you said. It's for closing?
Yes, it's for closing, and you have a minute.
Okay. In 1969, I came from Munich, Germany, where I went to school my first year at the University of Maryland. I then came to Wyoming. But I was the only one to test out a history, get hours from the history department. But I want to point out we are now at war, and the Japanese bombed Wyoming in 1944 with a Japanese balloon bomb. They figured out the air currents, the right altitude. Around 3.5 days, they can get incendiaries or high explosives over it. Killed several people in Oregon, but it was in the Owl Creek Mountains in Thermopolis, Wyoming. That was 80 years ago. We are now at war with Iran that's the size of Alaska, that could reverse engineer the weapons like Hughes Aircraft. Other companies went there. We have to be prepared for an attack like another Pearl Harbor. Thank you. God bless you all.
Thank you. Mr. Mead.
Yeah, thanks for having us out tonight. You know, my kids are 7 and 8, and I want to build a better Wyoming and a better country for them and for your kids. If you think there's too much money in politics, if you don't feel like your voice is being heard in Washington, and if you want someone that's always going to put Wyoming over anything else, you know, I'd love to have your support and your vote on August 18th in the primary. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Skofgard.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. And thank you, moderators. I appreciate the opportunity. We're divided right now. We're divided as a country, divided as a nation, divided as families. It's time that we put the nonsense of big money politics behind us. We need folks that are willing to step up from the people. The people are the ones that are going to be left holding the bag. We might as well elect someone from the people to start the cleanup process. And it's going to be a long and arduous process. It's going to be a little difficult. I'd just like to remind everyone that we, the citizens, defend the Constitution. This division that we see is about control. It's to get us to separate from one from another so that big money can retain control. A handful of very rich people sitting at the top of our process right now are doing that. Take a look at who you're voting for. And I'd like to give a shout out to Becoming Peacemakers, who's going to hold a meeting here tomorrow night at 7 a.m., their inaugural event tomorrow. I'd like to see folks come out and support that movement also. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hageman.
Yes. I love Wyoming, and I love representing Wyoming. And my team and I have worked diligently and tirelessly for you since the day that we were elected almost 4 years ago. There's something that I am particularly proud of, though, and that is the work that we have done for individual Wyomingites throughout this state, both small businesses as well as individuals. We have now resolved over 6,000 cases on behalf of Wyomingites. We have returned almost over $16 million to individuals in this state. That is money that was being wrongfully withheld by a variety of different agencies, whether it's the IRS or the VA or Medicare services or whatever it might be. We've also worked diligently to help our local communities to be able to make all of our lives better. We have brought about $40 million back for sewer systems, for police cars, for a variety of infrastructure projects. That's the kind of work that I am the most proud of because it affects everybody in the state individually. I have truly enjoyed, and I am so honored to represent you in the U.S. House, and I would welcome your support for running for the United States Senate. Thank you for this evening.
Thank you. So, thank you, candidates, very much. And this concludes tonight's primary election forum for the U.S. Senate race. Yes, please.
Please join us in Laramie, live or virtually, on July 15th for the Secretary of State and the State Treasurer Forums, and on July 16th for the Superintendent of Public Education Forum. We'll be back here in Casper at the college on July 22nd for the Governor Forum, and on July 23rd for the United States House Forum. Just a reminder that these forums are all being recorded and will be available at the Wyoming League, Wyoming Public Media, and WyoFiles website, and of course at vote411.org. Additionally, Wyoming leagues are hosting numerous local candidate forums in Laramie, Cheyenne, Casper, Gillette, Fremont County, Jackson, and Rock Springs. Visit wyominglwv.org for local forum dates. Please remember to check on your registration. Early voting starts on July 21st. Go to your county election office to check on your registration. And if not voting by absentee ballot or early, voting is Tuesday, August 18th. Thank you.